I'm going to start with actually talking about a guy I know. So here's a little stick figure. Start with this. He has sort of spiky hair. And his name is Mick Calder. He's an Australian guy. And Mick is, turnaround guy is the guy who, when you have not built the adaptive capacity and you have not innovated, the turnaround guy is the guy who comes in and the team that comes in buys your company. Usually they just buy your debt. So they bring you back to zero. They take over and they run your company. And you're out. Okay? This is what he does for a living. He's a nice guy, though, surprisingly. This company is called the 333 Group. Anyway, he's a friend of mine, and I asked him, how is it possible, Mick, how is it possible that you can come in to a company where the people who are running the company are experts? They've been running it for 20, 30 years, maybe 100 years even. There's companies that are 100 years old. They know their business. How is it that you can come in and buy it, take it over, kick them out, and grow the business and be successful? How is it possible? And he said to me, well, first of all, we never keep the managers in place when we turn around a company. They are always the problem. We come in, as part of the assessment process before we buy the company, we talk to the employees, and we talk to the customers, and we listen. And they always know what needs to happen. And then we just do what they say. And I said, that's crazy. Are you serious? You just listen? That's all you do? Yeah, we just listen. So how is it? How is it that we have people who are running companies? They're so smart, and that they somehow are not able to listen. How would this be? Anyone here use Facebook? Raise your hand. Facebook users? Okay. Anyone ever get in an argument on Facebook? Okay. About politics, maybe, or anything? Does that ever happen? Okay, here's what happens. This happens a lot, right? You have one person here and another person over here. They're on Facebook. And here comes a news article. Could be about anything. Maybe something political. Could be AFP, pension. Yeah? Okay, what happens? Well, someone says something. But what they're really saying is, and someone else says, no. No, that's wrong. You're so wrong. You are the most wrong of the wrong. And this person says, are you kidding me? This is obvious. You say obvioso? Is that right? Obvio. It's obvio. It's obvio. It's so obvious. You must be, excuse my language, you must be a fucking idiot. And what does the other person say? Oh, no. Yes, it's obvious, but you are wrong. You are the idiot. Right? So, it's obvious. It's obvious. And this could be the taxi driver. And this could be the Uber driver, right? And they're living in two different realities. They are living in completely different realities. And the word, I'm going to give the definition of the word liminal, because it came up in the Juan Carlos presentation where he had this picture that had the containing environment, the container, whatever we call it, and the threshold of umbral de... Yes, this threshold of responsiveness or threshold of sensitivity. Liminal is a word that means threshold. So it's very similar to umbral. Umbral. So you could say pensamiento umbral. It's thinking around thresholds. And so this is a perfect setup because we have, over here we have the turtle, right? With maybe peeking out of the shell a little bit. And we have the question of if we go too far up here, it's disaster. And if we go too far down here, it's total avoidance. And we want to stay in the middle, but we also want to be increasing this threshold, yeah? Or we want to be increasing our capacity in both directions. The threshold is, in this case, the threshold is between the obvious and reality. Because there is a reality that we share, one reality. Now, we all may, we have a reality that we live in, that we touch every day, and we have a reality that we hold in our head, which is kind of like a map, a sort of a very simple model. But if you think about the complexity of the universe and the size of our brain, there's no way that we could hold everything in there. It's just too, the brain is pretty complex, but not that complex. Okay? So we have a reality of incredible complexity down here. And I want to talk to you today about how we construct the obvious, how it's constructed, because we create the obvious. Right? When a baby is born, they have kind of just sensory perceptions of reality, and we learn to build these maps in our head. And there's a way that we do it. So first, you have the physical experiences that you have. Yeah, so I'm going to build two towers of belief here, two towers of reality, because we have two of them. You have the experiences. Just I have no way of knowing what it's like to grow up in Chile. I have no way to know what that feels like or what my world view would be like if I had grown up here and never left Chile. I have no idea what it's like to be a woman, to grow up as a woman in even my own society. I have no personal experience of what it's like to be black in the United States. These are experiences I have to guess about. I don't know what it's like to be a taxi driver. I know what it's like to sit in the back, but I don't know what it's like to have a life as a taxi driver. So we all have these experiences. They're very different. And neurologically, these experiences are about 11 million bits per second. Just in terms of our nervous system, what we can take in is about 11 million bits per second of information. That's a lot. However, out of that experience, consciousness, what we can actually notice and pay attention to is very tiny. It's like a needle on a record. Anyone want to guess how many bits per second we can actually consciously pay attention to? Yeah, close. 50. 50. 50. Tiny bit. Can you feel your clothes right now on your body? Okay, but you weren't feeling that 1 second ago before I said that, right? That's just one little example of all of the things that you might pay attention to. And I'm really glad, Juan Carlos, that you brought up piloto automático, because it's most of our lives we're going through autopilot. Just consider this like a moment in time, and we're going through on autopilot. Piloto automático, we say autopilot. When you're on autopilot, you're not actually there in the present. You're in your mind somewhere. You're thinking about the future. You're worrying about whether you're going to be late to something. You're thinking about your kids or something else, but you're not there in the moment. And here's the thing. Change is only possible in the present. You can't change the past. And the only way, the future doesn't exist yet. The only way you could even change the future is to change the present. So the only place that it's possible is now. Somehow we all came here, right, to come into this place to do this thing today. We came to the magic castle. We're gonna change here. And what Idemax has created here is a very powerful platform for us to transform ourselves. The morning is talk. The afternoon is we actually all talk and we actually start working on things and doing things. And my hope is that we come out of here with a different way of looking at everything that's around us and ability to actually change, make change happen. So these experiences, out of these tiny little bit of experience, we create everything we know. Everything we know. These are our theories of everything. From those theories, we make judgments. And from those judgments, we form our beliefs about things. And we stand on this tower, and it's obvious. Everything's so obvious. We're up on a tower. It's obvious. But we think we're on the ground. We feel like we're on the ground because these are all things that are real, and to us they are real. They're our experiences. If you have someone who's Israeli, right, over here, and someone who's Palestinian over here, you're going to have a lot of different opinions about what's obvious. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? All this. And the obvious is not something that is easily broken, right? How do these beliefs come into being in the first place? What do we notice? Think about how your attention, you don't always control it, but you direct your attention somewhat. Where does your attention go? Your attention goes to the things that you need. All right? What does the CEO need? What's the general manager of an organization need? Probably no one gets to that job without needing to feel important in some way, right? What are needs? Emotional needs is what I'm talking about here. But it's true of anything. If you're hungry, you're gonna notice things that have to do with food, right? If your car is running low on gas and you're driving, what are you gonna notice? You're gonna look. You're paying attention to things, and you pay attention always to the things that meet your needs. And if you have needs that are chronically not being met, then you're gonna create beliefs that are false. Like the turtle. It's gonna be okay. That's a belief. What's the need? Think about the need. Someone up here says, no, Uber's just a fad. It's going away. The internet's a fad. What's this person saying? What do they need? They need certainty. They need stability. That's an emotional need. There's a nice model. By the way, this whole pyramid thing is based on something called a ladder of inference, which you can look up. Just to do a little bit of the academic thing here. And then this thing over here, there's something I'm going to share with you called the scarf model. Doesn't work in Spanish, I'm sorry. Scarf is the thing you put around your neck. Bufanda. It's not going to work in Spanish because it's this acronym, so I apologize for this. Maybe we can make up another one in Spanish, but this comes from a place called the Neuro Leadership Institute. They're interested in neuroscience applied to leadership, brain science applied to leadership, and this is this is not necessarily the only way to do it, and it's just a very handy one that I like because I tend to be practical. But it's a way of thinking about what are the emotional needs in any situation. One is status. People need to feel that they're important, that they matter, that their opinion matters, that they're valued. The second one I already mentioned is certainty. People need to feel that the world is not, going to shake under their feet. I know you're used to that here, but people need to feel like the world is not going to completely be different tomorrow than it is today, right? Autonomy. People like to feel that they have control of their lives. Relatedness. People need to feel they belong. They need to feel they're part of a community, that they belong somewhere. And fairness. People need to feel that life is fair, that they're going to get a fair shake. Juste, right? It's just justo. Justo, thank you. I got it. I should stop even trying. These are really important. If you think about innovation, right, in an organization where there's someone who's the boss, and they've grown up in that organization, they've learned this stuff for many years, well, they have status. They have certainty. Even a very hierarchical company, the boss has autonomy, right? They feel like they belong somewhere. They feel like they live in a fair world. Of course it's fair because I got to succeed in it, right? So think about all of the emotional needs that innovation is threatening to this person, the general manager, the boss. Just about every emotional need they have is being threatened by innovation. This is the challenge. At the same time, I think most people in these positions are starting to come around. They may not necessarily admit it to you, but I think inside they're feeling it. They're feeling it. Somehow they're feeling the seat that they're sitting on is getting hotter. Right? They're feeling it. The question is, and it's true when the taxi driver argues with the Uber, right? They're feeling it, but what happens? The obvious, we have all these mechanisms to protect our emotional needs. They are not helping us. This is a little bubble or a little cycle that we call self-sealing logic. It seals itself. I think there's a word, self-fulfilling prophecy is profecia autocompleta, right? We have logic that agrees with itself, and it doesn't help us learn, it doesn't help us step into new territory, but it helps us protect our emotional well-being. And our minds will protect our emotional well-being even unto death in some cases. Okay? That's how important our emotional well-being is. If we are not feeling if our emotional needs are not met for a period of time that's long enough, we will die. There's a story, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it was a king. I think it was maybe a Russian king, a czar, who wanted to do this experiment, and he had children, babies, and he said, I wonder what the natural language of the human, this is way back, this is a long time ago, but he said, I wonder what the natural language of human beings is. We'll put the babies in, we won't let them have any human contact. We'll just feed them and everything, but we won't let them have contact with other people, and we'll see what language they speak. This was an experiment. Well, what do you think happened? They died. They died. Because human contact is so important. That human contact is so important to us that we will die without it. So these needs are really important. And having an argument up here, one bubble to another bubble, is not going to solve it. Have you ever noticed that these kind of arguments are never resolved by facts? Never. Facts do not resolve these kinds of arguments because we have a very strong protection to protect our emotional needs. It's and here's how it works. There was an experiment that was done with social scientists. They did with students in the U.S., and it had to do with the war in Iraq happening. And they studied students over the course of 4 years. They had them for 4 years, so they studied them for 4 years. They took students that had political views, Democrat and Republican, and they studied their attitudes and their beliefs and how their beliefs changed as the facts changed in the war in Iraq. So if you recall, the original premise to go into Iraq was there are weapons of mass destruction. It was George Bush. It was a Republican administration. There are weapons of mass destruction. We're going to go in because this is a bad thing, and we're going to, this is our reason. And the Republican students said, of course there are. there are weapons of mass destruction. And the Democratic students, who were of a different persuasion, said, no, there's no evidence that there are. We don't believe that there are. It's a bad idea. And of course, we went in. I apologize for that. I wasn't given a vote. So we go in, and there's no weapons of mass destruction found. So the Democrats, of course, say, well, of course there weren't. You didn't find them because they weren't there. And what do you think the Republicans said? Kids, students. Oh, they're there. They just haven't found them yet. They're good at hiding them. They're there. They're there. And then more time went by. And eventually it became, after a period of time, it became very hard to say they're there. Because if they were there, we probably would have found them. And then what do you think the Republican students, and of course the Democratic students said, of course, that's why. They weren't ever there, then that's why we didn't find them. What do you think the Republican students said when it was proven beyond a doubt that there was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Here, no, it's not even that. It's not even that obvious. He said they moved them, they disappeared them, but it's not even that. Self-sealing logic is even more powerful than that. They said, well, maybe there weren't any, but there must have been a reason. We just don't, or we wouldn't have gone in if there wasn't a reason. So there must have been a reason, they're just not telling us the real reason. That's how powerful, though. That's how powerful. And it's not just Democrats, Republicans, it's all of us. It's everybody. We have this powerful logic. Well, for example, my boss is a jerk. Okay? That's a bubble, right? That's a bubble. Could be true, could be valid. But, you know, there's two ways that we make sense of new ideas. Here's a new idea coming in. It's supposed to be a light bulb. New idea coming in. Two ways we make sense of it. One is coherence. That is, does it make sense inside of my bubble? Does it make sense given what I already know, all the things that I already know? Does it make sense already? In that case, fine. If it makes sense, fine. We'll accept it. Number two is validity. And by validity, I mean, can I test it? If I try an experiment, if I try it out, does it work? Okay, someone puts a new dish in front of me. I'm in Chile. It's happened a few times already since I've been here. Okay, is it fit in my world? Does it already fit in my bubble? Well, I don't know what it is, but it's a nice restaurant and it looks all right, so I'll try it, right? Maybe if it was a giant insect and it was alive and moving, I might be outside my bubble. But the problem is that we rarely or never do we test ideas for validity if they're outside the bubble. And that's the big challenge. That's the challenge that we all need to understand, and we need to help our managers and our bosses understand, is that if you only test ideas that make sense inside of your bubble, you're never going to learn anything truly new. You're only going to learn slightly incremental things on top of your existing worldview. You're never going to change your paradigm if you only test ideas that happen inside your bubble. What happens in most organizations today? I'm going to call this a decision mindset. Decision mindset is the people in my company come to me with ideas and options, and I'm going to choose. I'm the boss, so I'll choose the best option, or we're the bosses, or we're the board, or whoever. So give us all the ideas, and we're going to choose the best option. The problem, this is the way that management has worked for 100 years. Okay, people, let's hear your ideas. Okay, that one is the best one. We'll go with that one. But the problem is that these ideas are all coming from inside the bubble. And what happens when you only taking on a decision attitude is you get the CEO deciding between three very shitty options. And you're not actually bringing new options to the table. And that's why I think it's very important for us to think about taking on a design attitude. Design attitude means we need to take on ideas from outside the bubble. We need to take on some ideas from the white space. There are lots of ways to go about that, but how do you get outside of this bubble? Let's see, I have my takeaways over here. Let me make sure I get them. Okay. We have to go outside, and the way that we do that is we there's something called double loop learning. Same guy as the ladder of inference. His name is Argyris, Argyris. So there's something called double loop learning. Single loop learning is kind of like the thermostat, that you use to change the temperature in the room. If the temperature is over a certain point, it turns off. And if the temperature goes below a certain point, it turns back on again, or vice versa. But if the thermostat was able to learn about how to be a better thermostat, that would be double loop learning. A thermostat's not going to do that, but people, we can. We can get outside of this space by creating a second loop. And the second loop is quite interesting how this works. I talked about autopilot a minute ago, right? When we're in autopilot, we're not able to create any change because we're just going through the motions. We're just doing our life the way that we're doing it. And autopilot can be actually, usually in organizations, autopilot is not just our activity, but it's our activity impacting other people's activity. And you could have a million of these loops, right? I interact with one person, they interact, we have an interaction, I am a boss, I talk to the employees, we have one interaction, I go talk to my boss, and we have a different kind of interaction. All of those interactions together create the culture of the company. The culture, the easiest way that I can think of to describe culture is it's the habits of the organization. It's just like a habit, like smoking. You can have bad habits or good habits. And the habits of the company collectively are the culture. So you have this autopilot. Change is not possible if you're going to be on your autopilot. So just stay on autopilot if the habit is working for you. If the habit is not working for you, turn off the autopilot. You don't even have to know what you're going to do. You don't have to know. I was in the process of writing this book and thinking about autopilot and turning it off and how it works. And boy, that was how did that argument happen? And how do we get out of this? And I was just sitting downstairs. It was a very, very cold day. It was a Saturday. I had bare feet and was just, reading on my iPad, which, as you can tell, I love. And and she came down the stairs, and I could tell it was not going to be like, oh, good morning. And she walked right by me, and she said, were you even going to check and see if I was alive? And then she just she was gone. I didn't have by the time I opened my mouth, there was no answer. She was gone. She made a coffee, she went back upstairs. And my autopilot, we had a bad habit together, both of us, of the autopilot, which was we don't talk for maybe 2 days sometimes even. That was the autopilot. Just don't talk, and then eventually somehow. But that's bad for the relationship in the long run. It's harmful. So I thought, okay, I want to change. I want to turn off my autopilot. What's my autopilot? My autopilot in that case was just stay there, just nothing. The autopilot was nothing. So I knew I had to turn off my autopilot required me doing something. So I walked up the stairs and I knocked on the door and I opened the door and I said, I'm just checking to see if you're alive. And she looked up at me, kind of suspiciously, because I was going outside the routine here. I was breaking the habit. And she said, are you going out? And I thought, okay, what's my autopilot here? My autopilot is, hell no, I'm not going out. It's freezing cold, and it's Saturday, and I don't even have my shoes on. But I stopped that autopilot, and I said, yeah, I am. I'm going out. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going out. And then she said, are you going to McDonald's? And I said, yeah, I don't know what I'm getting. Can I get something for you? Well, by this time, she was laughing, and we broke the tension. And these kind of things happen. You have these opportunities in your life all the time, and you don't have to know what to do. You just have to know to turn off the autopilot, because if you turn off the autopilot, you have these 11 million bits per second of information you're not even noticing most of the time that are available to you. Just another, just very simple one. She asked me if she was going to the grocery store, can I pick up something? Can I get anything for you? And she asked me that 2-3 times a week. And one day I just said, can I go with you? And it changed. She started crying. How simple, how little a thing that is. And yet we have opportunities with bosses, with people that we work with all the time to do this, to just be there. Simply be. You can't change anything unless you can be there. So first takeaway, turn off your autopilot. Turn off your piloto automatico. I'm just going to write it in English because I don't have room. Turn off your autopilot. It's very simple. It's very simple, but it's very powerful, because if you turn off your autopilot, whatever your pattern is with your boss, your coworkers, you turn off, they count on you to respond in the way that you have responded in the past. You can't keep a habit going if the other person isn't. It's like a dance. The other person has to respond. If you decide one day that instead of doing this dance, you're going to respond, you're going to respond by going this way, people can't keep the habit up. I know a guy who came to an organization, and there was an unwritten dress code. It was kind of a Navy guy had started, a military guy. There was an unwritten dress code. It was not written down anywhere. Nobody knew anything about it, but it was everyone wears a white shirt like this one and dark blue pants or a skirt. And that was the dress code. And he broke the dress code. He didn't come in like Hawaiian shirts or anything. He just wore like brown pants or, a sweater. He came in just slightly different. Well, that's an example of someone who is poking at those cultural boundaries. What happened with this guy? Nothing. People would come up to him, how do you get away with that? How do you get away with that? And he would say, I just do it. Nobody's said anything, stopped me, and I just do it. Well, then what happened? People started kind of referring to him as that creative guy. Oh, that creative guy. He's over there, he's had a whiteboard in his cubicle, and every day he would draw a different picture on it, just a picture, like a palm tree or something on his whiteboard. Oh, that creative guy over there, section B. But then what happened was when people started getting stuck, when they got stuck on business problems, they would start saying, oh, maybe we should see if that creative guy we should go bring that creative guy, see if he could. So just by wearing different clothes and drawing a picture on his whiteboard every day, he got pulled into the most strategic conversations in the company. He became the creative guy in that company. And he was the one who was brought into all the most difficult problems and business problems in the company. So simple. These opportunities are all around you. So turn off your autopilot. Number 2 is create safe space. This is going to be so important for today. The thing is, for these emotional needs, right? If most companies are not safe places today. Most corporate environments are not emotionally safe places to be. So we walk into these organizations and we are not going to reveal our emotional needs. And what happens when we don't reveal our emotional needs? We just reinforce this bubble here. We have to create safe space so we can even learn what those emotional needs are. We have to create a space that's safe for people to share. The same guy with the dress code, the same guy who draws on the whiteboard, he would make tea. He actually got a little electric kettle and put it also in his cubicle, and he would make tea for people. He was a project manager on these really complicated projects that had lots of problems. People would come to him hopping mad. He'd say, great, let's talk about it. Let me just first make tea, a cup of tea for you. And he would make a cup of tea, and he realized, he told me that it's impossible to be angry with a warm cup of tea in your hands. And simply the time between someone having an urgent problem and him making a cup of tea, because it takes a little bit of time. You got to, steep the tea. I know you like tea and chili, right? You just have to steep it. You have to do, some things to make it, taste good. And that time and that connection, created an environment where people would come to him for all the time for help with things, for solving problems. And so he was able, through some very, very tiny, small acts, to create, to really become a huge force for change in that organization, which was, by the way, was Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Not a small organization. Create safe space. You have to get outside your bubble. How do you get outside your bubble? You have to find those strange ideas and try them on. What do I mean by try on a strange idea or strange belief? Someone offers you a belief, whether it meets your needs or not, you want to try it out, right? Your needs aren't going to change that much over time, your emotional needs. But if it's a belief that's outside your bubble, try it. Try a belief that's outside your bubble. You don't have to actually believe it's valid. You can test an idea for validity, even if you think it's wrong. You can test it. Just try it. There's a guy, his name is Jason Roberts, almost done here. Jason Roberts is his name. He was a guy from Dallas, just an ordinary guy, no special profession or anything. He went to Italy, and I think it was maybe Milan that he visited, and there was he saw these beautiful plazas with, the farmers markets and the vendors and the statues and just this wonderful thing. And he came back to Dallas, and he was just so depressed looking around Dallas and said, why can't we have this in Dallas? Why can't we have a plaza, an outdoor dining, and farmers markets? We have all the components. Why can't we just put it together in a way that is conducive to this social atmosphere? And he did this thing. He tried on this strange belief. He just decided to just make it happen. And what he did was he got his friends together. They actually got paint, and they went and they painted out on a 4-lane road, 2 lanes going in one direction, 2 lanes going the other direction. They painted out 2 of the lanes. They talked to the restaurants that were in the neighborhood. They got them to put outdoor tables. They put giant plants so the cars couldn't drive there, so the cars had to drive in to do it. They went, they found that there were laws against this kind of stuff, city codes that were against it. They went to the city council. They said, we'd like to invite you this weekend to this prototype of what we could do in our city, and we want to ask you why we have these laws that keep us from doing it. And lo and behold, the city council came down. They had a great time. They enjoyed it. They said, we don't know why we have these laws, but we can change them. We can take them away. And I know a guy so trying on a strange belief is a way, getting outside your bubble. Usually getting outside your bubble means get outside the building. Like, you think about the executives all, get outside the building is, you're not going to learn about customers looking only at spreadsheets and charts. You're going to get it, and a lot of times, like let's say if you're in a telco, the CEO is not probably going to want to talk to the customers. Why? Because the customers have a lot to bitch about. They have a lot of complaints. CEO doesn't want to hear that. CEO has other people to deal with that. But if the CEO really wants to make change, or if you really want to make change, you have to get outside the building. You have to actually go talk to those people. Think about Uber. How simple is the Uber equation? It's simply a person who needs to get from one place to another in a city. That's pretty easy to think about, right? Well, why is it that taxi companies couldn't think about that? They were inside their building, inside the temple of taxi driving, where you have to have a dispatcher and you have to have someone to answer the phone, and you have to have all these other things. And this is the way that it has to happen. Well, all you have to do is go out and look at a customer and start thinking, what would be the ideal way to serve this customer? And then you can start to look for technologies that can help you make that work better. I know the number of technologies that's available is so overwhelming. The easiest way to make sense of all those technologies is to look at your customer and just think, what are they trying to do? Airbnb did not come out of the hotel business. And you do it all on your phone, right? You just order the car. You don't have to pick the car because you know what the car is going to be. And when you arrive at the airport, a driver comes in the Audi A4, picks you up, takes you to the place where they get out, and you drive off in the car. Now, why did that idea come out of the rental industry, car rental industry business, do you think? No, it came out of somebody who was tired of getting on the damn bus and like sweating and waiting in line at a stupid counter, right? And saying, why does it have to be this way? This is where the innovation really is coming from. It's coming from customers. So the secret to trying on a strange belief is whether you don't have to believe it's true, you just have to act as if it were true and see what happens. Act as if it were true and see what happens. Turn off your autopilot. Create safe space. Do what you can to reduce fear and stress and anxiety in your environment, in your business, around you. You can do this from the middle. You can do all this from the middle. You don't have to be the boss. Turn off your autopilot, create safe space, get outside the building, try on those strange beliefs. Uber wasn't hiding what they were doing. Uber, anyone who's innovating, truly innovating, has a blog. It's not that stuff is secret and hidden. That stuff's all out there. You just have to look. Just go read the blog. They'll tell you how they're going to kill you. It's all out there in the open. It's not hidden. It's only hidden by your own bubble, right? It's all there. Get outside the building, try on the strange belief, act as if it were true, and see what happens. Now let's have lunch. Thanks.